coming into this next block, not always by design, by force, there's going to be 10 new players that weren't in July. Okay, so either through injury, availability, Reg 9 windows only work for July, November if you're in France. So those players go back home. They're no longer accessible to us until November. So what do you do with those other 10 players? Do you sit them at home and say, wait for your turn? Or do you say, go play and go get an experience and come back and join us later? So, you're going to continue to see churn. We're going to go into a period of, July and November are competition. In between is about development of the squad. And we're going to face 3, maybe 4 teams ranked in the top 10 with what is a largely, over the next few months, that is largely domestic based. Just focus on the process, focus on the improvements right now. We're on a journey here to develop experiences in depth.
Scott Lawrence!
Welcome to U.S. Rugby Happy Hour Live. Interviews with the biggest names in American rugby.
Consecutive MLR championship, and Team USA make history in Paris. USA Rugby is heading to Australia.
Here are your hosts, Bill Baker and that other guy.
Hello and welcome to U.S. Rugby Happy Hour. I'm Bill Baker. This is John Fish. I keep on doing it wrong. This is John Fitzpatrick. Welcome to the show. On this episode, Martin Pengelly unfortunately can't make it this week. He's away, so no national mall. But in just a few minutes, USA Men's head coach Scott Lawrence joins us. Got lots to talk about, Nations Cup and the fall series coming up. And Fitzy, I got to say, we've finally really gone coast to coast. I'm in here on the East Coast of Manchester by the Sea, north of Boston, Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Mass. Fitzy, where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in an undisclosed location in an unpaid role behind enemy lines, scouting our opponent, Canada, for upcoming matches. I'm in Vancouver. It's very nice, actually.
Nice. Well, it's good to have you there. Good to have you representing the U.S. on Canadian soil.
Well, I got stopped at customs. They almost didn't let me into the country because the guy recognized me from U.S. Rugby Happy Hour Live, and the unkind things I said about Canada, I almost was denied entry into this country.
We shall. Well, we're not. It's other podcasts out there say worse things about our friends to the north, but we do not. All right. With that said, let's get things going. As usual, please, listeners, like, follow, and subscribe to this show, this podcast. If you're on YouTube, leave comments. If you're listening to our show on your favorite podcast player, go ahead and like, follow, subscribe, share with your friends. And this is going to be a doozy, Fitzy. This is going to be a doozy. Let's do it. There he is, Mr. Lawrence, Mr. Coach Lawrence. How are you, sir? Good to see you again.
Oh, good. I enjoy the jingle, guys. I've been proudly red, white, and blue on that. I love to hear that, and I am unapologetically American. That is for sure. So, Fitzy, I don't think I'll be getting across any borders to the north anytime soon.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Scott, welcome back. Have you had a chance to relax at all? Take a few days off for yourself?
No, I mean, I think even though we have a couple weeks break, really, it's our season now. It's the test match season, and so you think about in season, any coach is you're working, and that's the beauty of it. This is the fun part. So yeah, we're no breaks, straight into the next round of execution for the team.
All right. So before we definitely want to talk about these July matches. Before we dive into those a little more about specifics, players, etc. There's a quote from the philosophical diary of Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, you're quite aware of this. Receive without pride, let go without attachment. You receive honors and slights the same way. What does this mean to you in respect to these July fixtures?
It just what it says, you just it's just information. We stay focused on our process. Stay focused on the improvements or areas we need to focus on with the team. And, ultimately, big moments are the result of processes and little moments along the way. And so you can't be past or future tripping. You just got to kind of stay in where we are today. And the daily. I think I sent that to you. The daily Stoic, is a big part of my life. I read Marcus Aurelius Meditations about 15 years ago, and really I've studied Stoicism and ever since, and I think it's very good for today's world. It's even more apropos now than ever before.
Yeah, this is a deep read there, and listeners, give it a chance. Check it out. There's so much to that. This is just a small part of Aurelius's writings, and it's pretty impressive. So Scott, let's get into it. Nations Cup. I mean, 3-0 wins over Portugal, Zimbabwe, and Spain. I just want to dab with Spain a little bit, and just at the highest level, for me at least, it seemed like everyone on that field that got on the pitch for USA played at a much faster pace, faster into contact, quicker recycling of the ball. Was it my imagination, or was that how you saw it also?
Well, there was some certainty to what we're doing. I think one of the big rocks for this year for us was to establish a playing identity and a really clear game model. And that's going to take us all year to get. But around the pieces that have been put in place so far,
Mm.
there was some certainty around that. Not as fast as I'd like yet. That's something that's come out of this series, particularly around the breakdown, that we need to be better at. But I think knowing your roles and being certain in what you're trying to achieve. I mean, it's like it's like probably driving to your local grocery store there, Bill. It's like, the first time you moved there, it might have taken you a little while. You might have been hesitant at the stop sign, but now you just roll right on through that stop sign,
Mm.
because you can get there, the way without looking at your GPS. So that's kind of the way I equivalent playing the game is keep it simple, keep it clear, repeatable patterns of things to do. And then that ultimately speeds up your decision making.
Hmm. Hear you, Fitzy.
I'm on mute. I'm unmuted because you can hear the breakfast is being served here at the hotel. But you mentioned, of course, I was on mute. But Scott, you had mentioned after the Spain match that you probably had maybe 3 opportunities to really put the game away. One, maybe in my opinion, was Julian Roberts, who I thought played pretty well. Just not able to handle that off-road from Mafu, but maybe call it slippery fingers or whatever. But the question here is, what do you think it takes for a side not to lose out on those opportunities on a regular basis and maybe close out matches early?
Any team, any person is really the product of their experiences. So, you need to be in those high pressure moments. And you need to not just go through them. I think one of the big things that I looked at going into this year is really highlighting to the important decision makers within the team big moments. What was our mindset? How did we approach those big moments? We review those big moments in the game, and um, with a little bit different, kind of coaching staff this year allows me to step back a little bit with the players and help them think about not just that particular moment, but that moment in the context of the cycle of the game. And then of course it's my job to think about that moment in the cycle of the game and then in the campaign for the year, right? But the players we want to really put them under. Now, the next step that we'll do here, guys, is going in August is we'll bring in Davy Gray, mindset coach, and we'll start to layer in more and more of those high pressure moments into our preparation.
Oh.
We did some in this campaign. We were just trying to get the team together. So you got to layer these things on. But now we're going to start to layer in pressure into the right parts during the week to help the players. Ultimately, you practice to try and win the game. Right. So we'll start layering more of those in.
I want to get to that in a moment, but I want to talk a little bit more, just kind of maybe prep our goals for the Nations Cup. And it's interesting the quote from Marcus Aurelius there about, let's equate it to wins and losses and not being, affected by results here. But I imagine you and your staff probably had some goals for the squad going into these three matches. I mean, like Bill and I and fans like wins, they like W's. Fair to say that some of the goals were to go 3-0 during this July period?
Yeah, we didn't. Wins never show up on the list. They did last year. They did last year for sure, right? We're trying to qualify for
Okay.
the World Cup, and that was a mistake. That was a mistake I made last year, and I just don't. I think again, it's our one of our new coaches, Dave Williams, has a saying that I've just unapologetically stolen, which is the game has all the answers for you. So the game is just the answers. Did we prepare correctly? Did we have the right game plan? Did we pick the right players? The game has the answers for you. So I think to get back to your question, Fitzy, for me, I just maybe just want to take a step back and say programmatically, what did we want to do in July? So one, we wanted to identify 2 to 3 players from the U20s that we felt like could to broach in the Eagles going forward. So, I got a little taste, a little gateway drug with Don Besag, right? Pulling him from the 20s. And so now, we're really looking at a couple more opportunities from the 20s. That's part of the July thing. In the 18s, giving them an experience again playing in South America, putting them under pressure for the next generation. And at the Eagles, really, we have 3 main goals for 2026. And the first one is to establish a playing identity for the group. The second one is to perform well in the top, 5 to 8 big moments in a game that can turn them. And then, finally, it's about, building 45 players that we have can consistently deliver to the model and the level that we need to pick 33 from. And so, you kind of take those 3 big things and then you say, well, what does that mean for the senior side going into July? Well, we say we gave some guys some opportunities in games. We capped some guys, so we started to build towards that depth. We spent enormous amount of time as a coaching staff leading into the assembly about establishment of 4 key actions, 11 key moments in the game, and how do we behave and how do we play in those moments. So it was about that identity and bringing that together and giving coaches the space and the players the space to contribute to that. And then I think, and again, it was like, how many of those big moments did we nail? And I think you can point to a specific instance with Julian, maybe in that drop ball, right? And you go, is that a big moment? Yes, it is. But if you back up and you go, let's look at the 2 minutes in the game before and beyond that, and how did we deal with that? So did we get the knock on? Did they exit successfully off of that scrum? And did we then apply pressure? And then did we end up with points in the end, right? So we kind of look at the moments in a maybe a little bit longer time frame um, than maybe what the negative moments stick out in our head. That's human nature. We kind of go, oh, there's a mistake there. That was kind of it. But we want to back up for a minute a little bit and say, what does it look like in the cycle in the game? Did we maintain pressure? Did we come away with points in this scenario? And that's the way we're defining the moment.
You mentioned U20s a moment ago. Any takeaway from the current U20s in the tournament? What do they get out of that?
Experience. I mean, we're the product of our experiences, and I think maybe one of the things that there's a gap in the 20s is that there are players that are held back from competing in the 20s from their clubs or colleges.
Mm.
And that's a mistake.
Mm.
That's a mistake. That's those international experiences, they're so valuable. They are so very valuable. And I think we need to take the objectives of the program and say, what do we want? Well, ultimately, what we want to do is identify the best players that we can, We want to put them into high pressure situations against teams that we're aiming to beat in 5 years, and then figure out, who's who in the zoo, so to speak, right? And find out the guys that we think are gonna project forward. And then our responsibility then is, what are the experiences that we then continue to provide those players between now and really 2030, which is when the next coach will pick that 2031 squad, is what does that look like?
Well, speaking of the U20s, let's talk about some of your players, the current senior players. Don Besag clearly came through that system. On guest in the show last week, isn't the kid in the team anymore, and he really showed it against Spain. Other than what fans or we've seen in the games, what has this vet shown you that makes him a first choice selection in the centers?
I think, we were. I'll tell you why we first selected him is I was looking at the GPS reports when our 20s were down in Kenya, and we were in Georgia a couple of years ago, and he popped up at 10.3 meters per second on a sprint in the game, and I said, we need more speed in the backs. I mean, that was obvious if you watch the Eagles, right? So we said, first and foremost, let's just get him up here, see what he's got. Um, Nobody expected that he was going to come off the bench, straight away, early in the game and play. And, he just made up with it, just pure hard work and athleticism. And he just, competed in his first game and probably lived a bit on emotion. But, since then, I think that Dom is able to quickly learn and adapt. And, you can watch him nail his role, and as he gets new detail into his role, he continues to grow in that, and he adds bits and pieces to his game. So we felt like, he has that ability and capacity to learn, and that's why we've sent him down to the Sharks now. It's like then we're helping, subsidize him to go to the Sharks, is
Okay.
because now he needs another experience, with another set of players. And if you're in a franchise with Springboks, you're going to learn a lot. So, I think we just want to keep feeding that beast, so to speak, as he continues to grow.
Scott, another player I want to talk about, Paddy Ryan. He had a heck of an MLR season with Seattle. Always seems to have more of a field presence out there. Always in the play. Interesting. He hadn't scored an MLR try until this season, and then he became kind of a little bit of a scoring machine for Seattle. Yeah, what have you seen in Paddy's growth, at least at the international level?
Well, I think, when Patty came into us, he was, maybe a little bit, when Patty's never low on confidence. He's a generally very positive individual, good to have in the environment. But I think he just needed someone to back him, and we saw some potential there. So I think, ultimately, Patty was probably dubbed as being a little bit too slow, not physical enough. And so, those pieces, is he's playing in faster games over the last 3 years, playing more regularly week to week in Major League Rugby. And now he's starting to see things before they occur, in the game. So again, it's knowing where you're going. So, more experiences in the international game, more regular playing time, at Seattle this year, ultimately is growing his game. So I think he's now got a little bit of a nose for the try line. He knows how to spot those opportunities, and yeah, many of them look very similar in the way they happen for him as well.
Well, just to pat ourselves on the back, he didn't start scoring those tries with MLR until he was on this podcast. So we will take all the
Yeah,
credit for you, Scott. Uh,
makes sense.
it
Makes
makes sense,
sense.
totally.
Yeah.
So in the general veteran pool, can you talk of the pool's growth as a team? And I'm talking about the mainstays, the Haas's, the Doms. How have they grown as a group?
Yeah, I think certainly a level of maturity. Ruben's playing with a lot of confidence right now. I think we've always wanted to push Ruben to go deeper into games on his minutes. So there was a big focus coming out of February, was working with the Chicago staff on his conditioning. so that he could go deeper. You would have noticed he played a lot of games, up until 76, 78 minutes during the course of the year, which was their decision. We don't take credit for that, but it certainly helped in building his robustness, which the more clearly Ruben thinks, the better he plays, and that comes with conditioning. So I think, he's grown there, and I don't really on an individual level. I think about it like this: like we have contracted or are working with 61 players that are playing in different parts around the globe. So what you see on the field with us is who fits that particular time during the 2026 calendar, right? But we're paying contracts for guys that are playing over an NPC, playing, and like we are developing experiences. So what you're going to see with this squad is, I think about it as 61 right now, and I think about what experiences can we bring these guys in throughout the year. So coming into this next block, not always by design, by force, there's going to be 10 new players that weren't in July. Okay, so either through injury, availability, not, Reg 9 windows only work for July, November if you're in France. So those players go back home. They're no longer accessible to us until November. So what do you do with those other 10 players? Do you sit them at home and say, wait for your turn? Or do you say, go play and go get an experience and come back and join us later? So, all of these players are going to, you're going to continue to see churn. We're going to go into a period of, July and November are competition. In between is about development of the squad. And we're going to face 3, maybe 4 teams ranked in the top 10 with what is a largely, over the next few months, that is largely domestic based. And so, that's why I say focus on the process, focus on the improvements right now. We're on a journey here to develop experiences in depth. So that's the way I think about it. Little bit, larger pool of players to call on.
Yeah.
We had Alex Mon playing hooker. He played tight head all year, right? Kaleb Geiger, Sean McNulty, injured, Pete, right? So, it's important for us. That's why we maintain and manage and communicate and align with, so many players, is you just never know if you're going to get into that 4th, 5th, 6th depth chart position, during the year.
Well, let's talk about some of the newer players, Scott. Another person that came in against Spain, Charlie Abel, earned his first cap in that match, qualified via Regulation 8, but he did spend a very short time in Auckland in 22. Can you share some insight? I mean, people can say, well, they went online. No one knows exactly what happened. Any insight on what it took to get him qualified for that Spain match?
Yeah, we filed back in March for Charlie. So, the way that it's done is that there is a committee inside of World Rugby. So there's no Wizard of Oz behind the curtain saying you are qualified, you are not, right? It's done with a cross nations committee. We have a representative from the U.S. who recused himself from the process because, for obvious reasons. And ultimately, what we filed was a petition for Charlie, in that he was. So in order to be eligible, you have to establish. They keep it kind of loose because you want to be able to rule within that, right? It's a governing body, so. You have to establish a credible residency, credible tie to a country for 5 years. Now, sometimes, mostly they say, look, that's no more than 60 days out of the country. 2 years ago, that then changed to say continuous registration, understanding the country. We kind of went back and said, look, special circumstances here. Our professional league last, 5 to 6 months. Charlie had signed a 3-year deal with LA. That franchise then ceased to exist. He was then held in limbo for 3 months while they were deciding what to do with dispersal of the players. Chicago then came into the league. Chicago signed him immediately. He signed immediately, and then he played for them. Well, he's a professional rugby player. You don't sit around for 3 months without knowing it and not working, right? So we kind of went back to that, and we just said, look, extenuating circumstances. This is the nature of our league. Um, I want to be careful. People get butthurt when I say that, there's volatility. There was at the time with LA. Um, so there was that. And so ultimately what the committee said was, we can't give you 5 years from start to finish because he was there, but we're going to tack on that period in which he was out of the country, right? Remember, there's also a visa. He can't be in the country legally. So we're like, legally, he can't even be here. So how do we get through this? Can common
Hmm.
sense prevail here? Um, so anyway, they kind of said, look, it's not going to be the original date. We're going to have to account for the time lapsed.
Yeah.
They went ahead and did that, added it on, and ultimately, Charlie was made eligible. We didn't think it was going to be until August
Huh?
originally when we filed, but he came available in July. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's got another player I want to talk about. I think a lot of fans, when they initially saw the name, if they weren't deep into following Pro D2, probably been like, who's Perry Mayo? But he had a heck of a season with his French club. Very fun to watch. Immediate impact with the Eagles. Now, we hear stories about players like how Will Hooley was discovered to be Eagles eligible. How did Perry come into your view?
yeah, I mean, I think once you qualify for the World Cup, all kinds of things come out of the woodwork. Um, but and there's a lot of them out there, and we're very discerning on who we want. Do they have a credible tie? Do they really want to be here? Are they committed to what we're trying to achieve? So I think with Perry, we ultimately he found us through Paddy Ryan, and so then we went digging a little further and realized his quality and realized how tied he was to us, to his mother, and so yeah, so we brought him in, and he didn't have an expectation of playing, and we were just kind of like, well, let's see what we've got here. Let's bring him in and take a flyer, and so just the way things fell out with Joe Mano, we thought was going to be available, showed up to camp injured, had to send him home, right? So all of a sudden now Perry is in the mix, and uh and so yeah, he got his opportunity and showed he's a finisher,
Yeah.
which talk about big moments.
Yeah.
He had a
Yeah.
couple. Yeah.
So does the mono injury maybe explain partially why we saw Mayo primarily on the wing? Could we anticipate maybe seeing him at fullback too going ahead in the future?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. He's definitely, we want to build depth in the fullback position, and about having Perry on the field, it was like, if Mitch left the game for whatever reason, then we could switch, and Perry already had a feel for the game. We knew he was fit enough to play at the next, to play 80 minutes. So he gave us different options around the bench and things like that to have them both on the field at the same time without too much, change.
One more player I want to bring up. Great name, first of all, Cash. Let's talk about him and his progress. He got his start back in, I believe, 2023 with the version that was there in Glendale. Is he the backs version of Caleb Geiger?
American Beef.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's you can't teach what God gives you, and he's unbelievably explosive guy, and we really wanted to start to generate more momentum through our centers, through the midfield. Dom gives you that. Uh, Lepetti, will give us that as we keep working on his depth and hit onto the ball. So I think we wanted that from Cash. He was a lot like Perry, and we said he's played in a club where they run a lot, they don't kick the ball a lot, and ultimately it was his repeatability. You think about transfer of American football into rugby, repeatability is always a thing that takes a long time to get. And it's not just physical, it's mental, staying in the moment from, continuous play. So So we wanted to bring him in and just see what we had in cash, and we like what we saw. We do think going now into the next thing is we're gonna send cash abroad now. We think he
Mm.
needs to play a lot more games. We'll bring Tom Pittman back into the squad to give us, a different type of momentum or footwork than power. Um, but he'll be part of the Eagles going forward. It's just a bit of a journey for him.
Let's get some player updates, Scott. How's Corey Daniel doing?
Corey's I gotta be careful. I don't say anything medically, but Corey's going to be out for an extended period of time. We won't see Corey again until next year. Uh, Very disappointing for Corey.
Yeah.
He's really come on. He's playing well, and um, but um, but he's a warrior, and his mindset is good. He's now focused on having surgery this the end of this week, and then tomorrow, and then getting back on the return to play.
It's a tough loss considering how well he's been playing.
Mm.
Any expectations of when Kaleb returns, AJ McGinty, David Ainu'u?
Yeah. Um, I'll start with Kaleb. So we expect Kaleb to return for the PNC. We think Sean McNulty will also start to become healthy around the PNC, as well as Rhino Herps as well. That we're kind of targeting them for that timeline. AJ McGinty, clubs are getting smart. I told AJ at Bristol, you can't play for the US if you want a contract this year. And
Mm,
and so, it kind of put him in a tough spot.
yeah.
But that's maybe best for everybody is after the Achilles injury is he gets through a full preseason. He plays, a number of games for Bristol, gets himself back ready to go. And we see it as an opportunity to for not only Chris and Luke, but also Davey Kutzer will join us in August and be in camp with us a few times this year, right? So it's an opportunity for us to establish our identity. I won't say anything to you I haven't said to AJ and to the team is, for a long time the Eagles' identity was AJ and the way
Mhm.
AJ wanted to play, and so now we're establishing an identity that AJ can comfortably come back to and play within. If and when that occurs. So, and then you had one more. Sorry, did you have one more? AJ,
David?
Caleb, David. Sorry, David.
Yeah.
Yeah, David. David had elbow surgery after the season, so he had yeah, so he had surgery. A little bit more extensive than he thought. So I spoke with him yesterday. He's still fully committed to the Eagles. And so we'll look at the opportunity for David in November, assuming he gets his return to play done and he gets healthy. But he's still excited, still wants to be a part of it. It's just one of those things hasn't aligned for the last year and a half for either
Yeah.
of us.
So we discussed, or you discussed also the partnership of Hilsenbeck and Ruben de Haas. How they've been playing together quite a bit with Chicago.
Mm.
With that in mind, do you think the reduction of non-domestic qualified players, MLR, last season has had a positive effect on the Eagles? And also, does that maybe make it tougher for, say, a spot for AJ to come in if and when he's able to?
Well, I think you can say that two things happened that one positive and one maybe we didn't really want, right? Like we want to see Major League Rugby flourish. We want to see many teams as possible playing, and so the reduction of teams was difficult for the owners, for everybody involved. A lot of people lost their jobs. We had guys getting phone calls saying they didn't know that their job was done the night before we played Samoa. It's like we just all kind of just got through all of that together. And then, you know, um, but what's happened as a result of that is maybe the playing base has become more concentrated towards the better players, right? Upside of that, more concentrated towards the better domestic players. Downside of it, succession planning for younger players coming through. We might see an issue 2 to 3 years from now. So we need to be thoughtful, and we are being thoughtful around how do we continue to give experiences to guys professionally to do that. But What's happened is we started to get a higher level of competition amongst the domestic players. And then, of course, the reduction put in foreign players, put more players on the field. So you think about it, more concentrated talent, more of them on the field, more starting minutes. And I think whether it was through injury or whatever, there was a lot of teams that ended up playing 9, sometimes 10, if, US starters in the game each week, so it wasn't like there was even 7 that had lockdown spots every week in every team. So yes, the playing base is getting better and it's a competitive environment. What does it mean for AJ? Well, it means what it means. It means it's more a competitive environment, right? Our players are playing more, but um, I will say, I had a conversation. One thing I really enjoy is relationship with the owners and Major League Rugby. I have really solid relationships there and enjoy my time when I get to talk to them. And speaking to one of them, he said, I see these guys, they're dominating in the MLR, and then I saw them in these test matches and they're not dominating. So that's test rugby,
Yeah.
right? That's test rugby. It's every country's best. And I said, I just thought those players would, I said, yeah, it's different gravy. It's different. It's game model.
Yeah.
It's competition. It's, you know, it's good it's good to see. So the point is, it's a flywheel, right? Because these players are now we've got more players playing more minutes. Hopefully they go down from 7 to 6. They see some success in this, and the product I thought was great this year. I really did. I thought the American
Yeah.
players went well. I'm biased, but I thought it was good product in terms of the game. And then we'll see that, and then they get these test experiences on top, and then and it just becomes ultimately what we wanted was the players to have a really full season, like a European season between Major League Rugby and between Eagles. How can we share the load financially and game wise to make sure that we continue to grow the playing base for both parties?
Scott, just a few more questions here, but I want to kind of look ahead now. When and where does the group get back together to prepare for the next match against Argentina 15 in August?
Yeah, so we'll get back together in Florida on the 2nd of August. And so we'll spend a week plugging some holes in the ship, so to speak, that we picked up from July. And then we'll focus on playing Argentina 15 with what we call a USA 15. So it's again, it's not a cap game, it's not, but it's going to have a lot of cap guys in it.
Gotcha. Miami in August seems like a brutally hot time of the year to play there.
Yeah.
How are the guys preparing for that? Are they working out in saunas?
Yeah. Yeah, well, the guys that are in the South, they get it for free, as you may know. But yeah, various things that they're doing. I mean, I think we saw, and as we're looking at our World Cup base camps for next year, high humidity locations are great for adaptation. It's really hard for anybody to adapt. Everybody points to altitude, and altitude is okay, but humidity is some recent research. So it's just all part of the plan to start preparing for next year. Let's play in Charlotte, let's play in Raleigh, let's play at altitude in Denver, let's play in Florida and make it suck, and it's just all part of the plan.
For those listeners that don't follow you on LinkedIn, they should, because you share a number of interesting graphics over the last couple of weeks and months, just reporting. So you're very much a stats numbers guy. Have you had a chance to go over the numbers for the Nations Cup, and is there anything maybe that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to maybe offer another perspective there, I'm a data guy. And it's a little different, you know what I mean? Because numbers guys can be kind of like the number says this, therefore. It's like, it's one part of the story for me, but it's an easy way to share stories and information. Is people can fully grasp numbers and make their own conclusions. But so I share a little bit. I think we look at some things that came out of July that are big focus areas for us. So I think 22 conversion and 22 repel are two areas that we want to grow the team going in. I think we look specifically at 22 to try line. How many collisions do you win as a forward? What's your win percentage? What's your bat? I mean, how many do you win there? We change that perspective from the individual person who gets the number. Here's where a story comes in, the data, but it's a collective. Are the guys on either side of him running their lines correctly so that he gets a one-on-one? And when he does he execute correctly? So you get a bit of collective feedback on that. I think the other thing that we looked at that is massively important is if you can develop a set piece that can win you penalties, is that the distance of your line kicks become massively important. We ranked last in this Nations Cup coming into that, so it's been a challenge that's been put back to guys. It's when you're out doing your fitness training, turn around, grab a ball, go for a line kick, go for maximum distance. Don't worry about it. Do it while you're fatigued. We mix in line kicks in training in between high intensity things. So it's important. So is kickoff accuracy. Think about a kickoff moment in a game, right? As the other team is scored, momentum is in their favor. So when how important it is for you to reach 90% plus on your kick chase when we kick long, if we kick long, that's territory. That's every meter gained. That's a tackle. That's okay. So we're going to tackle you. Let's say we do kick long. We're going to tuck you in a corner. We're going to pressure your box kick. We're going to take a line out from there, and then it comes back to, okay, once we've done that, what's our collision win rate, and how many defenders beating our backs doing? So when we start to look at the data, you have to kind of shape it in. Like you can go, oh, we're bad at this, we're bad at that. Or you can go, actually, in the areas of the game model that we are trying to achieve, we sat here in the statistically in the areas that we just said aren't part of our game model. Who cares? If you're last, it's all kind of contextual. Test rugby is what do you leave out, not what you put in. You have 3 practices to get ready for a game.
Yeah.
So focus on the things you think have the most benefit.
Scott, did you create these data models yourself, kind of like Goodwill Hunting and the chalkboard?
I certainly had a part in the design of them.
Right.
Yes, I had we about 2 years ago. So we have you guys helped me with some stuff around Jimmy Harrison. He's brilliant. He's recognized in World Rugby as one of the best analysts across. Everybody knows Jimmy and talks about Jimmy. So one thing that when I first came on board that I did was I said, we can tell really nice stories through data. And so what we did with Jimmy was I sent him away for a little bit of a training course on data visualization and storytelling for data. And then he came back. And so that's the only piece of credit I'll take from it. But the actual, and just the design and feedback of the design, like I didn't build it in the background. That was Jimmy's job. But I had some feedback in the design. But he's tremendously creative in the way that he brings to life, stories about players with the data. And so most of that work that you see is stolen. It's his, and I just put it up online because I'm proud of him and proud of the work he does.
And finally, Scott, Fitzy brought up earlier about goals and such, and when we think of Moonshot Rugby, are we closer to the moon?
It's a good question. It's hard to see the big picture. I mean, I think some of the big plays that we've put in place over the next couple of years, last 2 years, we won't know until a year or two from now whether we've seen them through or not, and whether they've returned. And I think that is the challenge that you accept in a role like this is, you're going to have your time in the seat, and by taking a greater interest in the pathways, whether the things we did now are successful or not, I won't know until I'm out of the seat.
Yeah.
And so you kind of take that on, but you have to really care about them, and and we do, and we spend time with it. I think it's what's probably when your kid doesn't get picked, then you go, there's no plan, right? And we hear that a lot, right? Kid didn't get picked, okay, well, there's no plan, so okay. I think for us, what we look at is we have a cohort of players at every level. We have playing plans, and we have paths for them. We know where they rank in terms of high projection and high ability today versus projection. It's best guess. You do your best with it. You allow for new players into the pipeline. I think ultimately what's gonna move us forward towards Moonshot is exactly what happened this year. So you asked the question around Major League Rugby. Well, you gave American players the chance to play, and they didn't disappoint you. They didn't. They produced a great product. So it's a really simple formula: more opportunities, more games, more experiences, more playing, good coaching. These guys all got good coaching during the year, and do that at as many levels as we can. So I don't think I answered your question. That was intentional. I just I think we're doing the right things to the best of our ability at the moment, and we're always looking for ways to do it better.
Well, to be fair, I didn't think there was an answer to that question, but I think you did well. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Scott Lawrence, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck in the second half this year. Obviously, we're cheering for you and the boys.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks
Appreciate it.
again. Bye-bye. That was probably the most informative and candid show we've done with Scott, or that I've heard in other interviews. I really feel like he's opened up quite a bit about these players and the team, Bissy?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I always learn something new after
Yeah.
chatting with Scott. Obviously, there's a lot about rugby I don't know, and I'm fully aware of that. But I always come out of these interviews a little more informed and feel like, I feel like I know what's going on here. So
Yeah. A little
maybe
bit.
just a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty dense, so in one ear, out the other. But, a couple of things I'm going to pick up and I'm going to apply when I'm coaching my U10 team. So,
There you go.
yeah.
Absolutely. Run them to death and then have them make kick. A real quick story for you, Fitzy. The last New England Free Jacks match this year, I was walking in with my wife and my good friend, a couple, husband and wife, and behind me, walking down the road, is Scott Lawrence. And I turn, I stop, and Scott walks up. I say hello, and I turn to my buddy Mike. I say, "Hey, Mike, this is Scott Lawrence, the USA Men's Rugby head coach." As Mike's reaching out his hand, my wife says, "Yeah, I'm just his wife." as in, you don't introduce your wife first. I'm like, "But he's the rugby guy. He's my rugby pal." Anyway, yeah, I haven't lived that one down. John Fitzpatrick, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you get some coffee and some breakfast. Say hello to the family for us, for all your listeners or listener. Yes, sir.
No, I forgot. Next time we talk to Scott, we should offer our Jingle services. Maybe we put out a recruitment video, a recruitment song. Because, what else would entice players with an American grandmother or something to come play American rugby than an AI-generated recruitment pitch? Clearly.
AI, what are you talking about? That's a great idea. Very much like the Army commercials and whatever else. Let's just do it. We're on it. Listeners, please like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast or leave some comments on the YouTube video. Thanks for tuning in again. We'll see you guys next time.